same beginning from a standing place. Our feet are in closer than hip width. There's just a finger or two width between the feet. And just take a moment for ourselves when we get there, just to experience the weight in the soles of our feet. Now, if we think of the inner line of the foot, so from the big toe, the base of the big toe, the arch, back to the inner side of the heel, even the center of the heel, and creating a bit more weight there. And then just focus into the leg muscles for a moment, the way they engage onto the leg bone, that sense of pressing a bit more weight into our feet. And a little bit of a tuck to our tailbone. And then staying at the back body, if we've got that little tuck to the tailbone, feeling the back of the hips, and then bringing the attention up the back body, and let's get up between the shoulder blades into the upper back, and thinking of elongating in our back body. And then our attention comes up into the neck. Think of our neck moving backwards, the back of the head going backwards and upwards. And we get our head in this position with the neck and the feeling of the back of the head. And we've then aligned the weight of our head kind of over the dead center of our body. And then let's then flow back down just through the core. Just take our hands now into our low belly and just use the fingertips gently rubbing and having the abdominal wall respond to the fingertips, just a little bit of engagement. And end off with a feeling here of the low ribs lifting up a little bit, opening apart. And then we'll work with our breath. We'll start with our fingertips quite low here. And then when we inhale, fingertips running right up the center of the body, arms lifting. Let's get our inhale with the arms ended with the arms up high. We'll hold the breath as the arms extend. And breathing out with the lips slightly parted, breathing out through the mouth. It's as if we're breathing out through a straw. Inhale, we come back up our center. And as we're breathing out, the arms descend. And really having permission for ourselves to have our own breath. When we do inhale, just letting the air flood into the body. So as we're exhaling, the diaphragm is relaxed. And then it's the muscles around the ribs, and the upper abdomen that squeeze the ribs back in. But when we inhale, then the diaphragm pulls itself down. So we just let air flood in our lungs. And just at our own timing, We'll get one more full breath. Now, whenever we finish that breath, just let the body return to ordinary breathing, however the body wishes to breathe. But whenever it is an inhale, have the attention through the belly. So these muscles on the inhale, they draw down, the diaphragm's moving down. And then whenever we are breathing out, when that comes, as we exhale, imagine, as well as breath going out through the nose and mouth, breath is also going to travel down through the hips, down through the legs, into the soles of the feet. So we're going to return our attention now to the experience of the soles of the feet. When we need our breath, as we inhale, we're going to take the weight out of the heels and let them just rise up. And we'll take our exhale back down. When there's weight on the heels, we can lift all the toes up. And we'll just go back and forth a couple of times. Heels float up. And then the toes lift. We're going to do one or two more. Once you've got a sense of where the weight is in the feet, let's look at what happens for ourselves in the back body. And there's that little tuck to the tailbone, back of the waist going back. But then feel the upper back, between the shoulder blades, higher in the upper back, that zone lifting up, gentle feeling of moving backwards, the neck moving backwards. Internally creating a spacious back. And whenever we return the heels, just pause there for a moment. And just bring the weight even through the feet. And then let's lift all the toes again. We lift the toes, we can often sense that weight around the base of the big toe. And then let's shift the weight out towards the outside edge of the foot, the little toes, so that inner line clearly off the mat. And then we're going to roll back in around the big toes and see if we can get a feeling of that outer side, that edge of the foot coming off the ground. Letting our knees relax where they need to so that we don't put strain on the knee. Just back and forth. As we do this, again, experience the placement of the tailbone, the back of the hips. There's that just a little bit of a tuck. So we have a feeling of opening in the sacrum, opening in the lumbar. And then next time the weight moves in towards the base of the big toes, just pause there. We still have all our toes lifted. We're going to keep the big toes lifted and see if we can bring the other toes down. And then we're going to switch. So sometimes when we do this, just to get the toes going and moving, we need to look at them for a moment. And we get that visual clue, and then we're often able to just keep going. And we're just working side to side. So side to side means big toes up, all the others down. And then reversing, big toes down, the other toes up. Okay. Now, once all the toes come up, let's pause there. And just for a breath or two, have a feeling of pushing them apart from each other. Just like we would spread our fingers. And then release the toes down. Just give them a moment to let go. And then one foot, then the other, dig the toes down into the mat. And then let's release, allow the toes to relax. And then let's take the feet a bit wider apart. So I'm going to swing my heels out and turn my feet out. And this is going to give me roughly hips width. And always we fine tune so we're comfortable, hips, knees, ankles. When we're ready here, we're just going to bend the knees. There's just a feeling of a settling down. Got my hands on the hips, and we're going to start by circling from the hips. So knees and ankles move because the hips are moving. We get that circle going in one direction. And when we're ready to, we'll just switch direction. And own timing, let's get another change of direction. And reversing again when we're ready. And then back into the center position. And back to that feeling of just sitting onto a very high chair. And then again, the tailbone just a little more tucked. Use the abdominal muscles. Imagine there are hands that's pressing into the low back. And so they're going to press the low back a little bit. Okay, so here we are at the side. Now what we're going to do, when we exhale, we're going to bring the tailbone a little more forward so the pubic bone starts to move, and then we're going to bring the collarbones down toward the pubic bone and just let the hands find a new place. I'm going to take mine closer to my knees. So if I press my elbows outward and kind of push them forward, I can feel my shoulder blades have moved. And then I'm going to press my spine up and out and back. And then let's think of the neck as part of the spine. So rather than let the neck go down, push the neck up and tuck the chin. So here we get a nice long exhale when we're ready to. And we're going to straighten up as we inhale. So when you're ready to breathe in, as you start the inhale, have the fingers lift and they get up around the collarbones, the throat, and then lift the shoulders. And then imagine the shoulders pulling on the ribs to pull them up, and then keep pulling. And then we're going to start to extend the arms. And the arms fully extend, the gaze is upward. And at the end here, we just gently move the hips forward. And we're going to reverse as we're breathing out. So when we come to breathing out, we fold the arms first. When those fingers come into view, we start to tip the head. And the gaze is on the fingertips. The head keeps tipping, the shoulders releasing, and we're curling back over. And we're going to go all the way down. So as the arms go low, put the arms just above the knees. So the arms can take a little weight, elbows press outward and toward the mat to spread the shoulder blades. Long exhale into the belly, then keep the hands where they are. And when you need to inhale, move the tailbone back and we'll extend the spine with the hands just above the knees. So we'll stay in this low position. So reach out the crown of the head. We're still going to tuck the chin a little bit. We're going to press the back of the neck up and then lengthen the spine. So it's a little different. We get ourselves into this place. Now internally, tuck the tailbone a little bit, push the back of the waist up, move the chest forward, have a feeling of the breastbone lifting up, pressing outward. So we've elongated the spine. And then soften the hips. Now let the tailbone stick back. Okay, now we're going to reverse again. Let's start at the tailbone. Let the tailbone tuck. Tailbone tucks under, the back of the waist presses back, and then keep coming up the back. We start to round through the ribs, and then spread the collarbones. We're going to tuck the chin, but we're going to lift the back of the neck. And really create a rounded feeling. So fine tune internally, lift the armpits, lift the neck, take the waist back, feel where the weight is in the feet. And now from here, we're going to come tall again. So at some point we need to breathe in. As we start the breathing in, lift the fingertips up, bring them up around the shoulders, the eyes, see the fingers. The shoulders and arms keep lifting. The eyes, the head goes with the upper body. As we lengthen up, we pull the ribs up with our reach. So we extend ourselves and we gently, gently press the hips forward. And at some point, it's time to breathe out. The arms start to come down. When the hands come into view, we start to lower the shoulders, lower the head. As the arms lower, the shoulders lower, we keep rounding through the back, rounding over. And then again, we're going to end up rounded over with the hands above the knees. Our tailbone is tucked. So keeping our tailbone a little tucked, pushing up the back of the waist. Spread the shoulder blades by adjusting the elbows. Lift the neck, tuck the chin. Sense the weight in the feet, even weight. Nice rounding of the back. Now with the arms here, we're going to flatten the back. We're going to stay in this position, just like we did previously. So first off, send the tailbone back a little bit. Lift the ribs up, the neck up, top of the head up. Chest forward a little bit. Now here, we've got this length to the spine, but we can actually stretch the back of the waist a little more by creating a tiny tuck at the tailbone. It's going to pull the lumbar vertebra, gently going to draw them, give the option to them to move further apart from each other. We don't want to yank them apart. It's the wrong image for us. We're just setting it up so that they can release apart. So little tuck to the tailbone and move the ribs forward, upward, outward. And breathe into the belly. The belly's like here, it's like a hand. It's reaching into the low back. And then from here, we're going to reverse. So start at the tailbone. Let it really tuck more. Let the hips move. And let the lumbar really start to try to round. And then we round through the upper spine. And initially, just really go with a chin tuck. And then we're going to refine that. We're going to keep the chin tucked, but we're going to lift the neck. So it changes where we're holding the head, lifting the neck. That lets us have a lot more freedom of movement when we lift the head. So those cervical vertebrae in the neck, they get the opportunity to open apart from each other. And then from here, we're going to rise up. So we inhale, take the arms off the legs, let them float up. When they're shoulder height in front of our face, let the face follow the fingers and let the shoulders lift and have the shoulders creating a feeling of pulling on the ribs and pulling the ribs higher. And then pull all the way down the body into the hips. And we get to stretch ourselves up. And we're just going to reach for the ceiling. And then let's just pause here. So we'll just let the gaze go straight ahead. And at some point, we're going to breathe out from this place. So we'll stay tall this time, just letting the arms go wide. So let's play in the shoulders in the upper back. I'm bringing my arms down, but I'm going to keep my shoulders internally feeling lifted off of my ribs. So go into the armpits and lift the armpits up. And then when those arms come down, just let them hang. Right? So they're just hanging. When they hang, they don't quite fall to the sides. They may, but they allow the possibility of them just dangling away from the sides of the body. And take the attention in the armpits again. And there's a real lifting through the armpit, and it affects all this musculature around the shoulder girdle. And just appreciate that for a moment. Okay, and we'll get the feet wider apart. So I've got my feet now out past my shoulders. My own version here, we have to find it for ourselves. I'm going to turn the heels out, the feet in. And when I do that, I got to kind of bend the knees almost right away. So if I keep myself upright, but just tip my head over and look down, my knees have blocked out my toes. And that's a rough guide that I'm in a pretty good position. Always, though, go with the sensation we have in our joints. Knees especially have to be comfortable here. So once we get the legs set, we can always adjust when we get going, but we'll put the hand at the hip, and we're going to ease the upper body one side, then the other. Don't get a big movement initially. I want to let this build gently. Okay, once I feel for myself, oh, there's my hips going side to side, or excuse me, my hips aren't going side to side, my ribs are going side to side. And the hips just getting dragged a little bit. Once I get that, I'm going to bring the hands onto the low ribs. So for myself, I want to feel like, oh, ribs pressed to the side, ribs pressed to the side. Okay, and I get that, and then I can release the arms and try the fingers up here on the shoulders. Now, if we're okay with the hands up here, you know, there can be many kind of difficult places here. So don't insist on it, but if you're okay, bring the elbows just a little higher for a couple of times. And then open the arms out. So I've got the palms gently pushing out, palms just a little higher than the shoulders. Again, this isn't always okay, so we adjust the arms to where it is okay. And then when I push to the right, bring the right arm down, the left arm up. So I'm going to turn the arms and gently push. And then inhale back here in neutral. Reach to the left, left arm down, right arm up, and gently push. And then back into neutral. Reach to the right, right arm down, left arm up. And now bend the elbow and push. And then sweep up with the inhale. Taste neutral, over to the left, left arm, right up. Bend the elbow, So here I'm pushing out through the palm, back to neutral with the in-breath, over to the right. And now it's a straight arm. And so now it really pushes outward. So if I can, see, here's the bent arm. So we can find the bent arm and then just gently push out. Really got to be polite here though. There's an awful lot of important material running through this whole area. So we're not trying to damage it. Here's the inhale back into neutral. And over to the other side. So I can start with the elbow bent, and then I can push. And flow back into neutral. And then stretch the legs up, pull the heels in. Make sure the knees are okay, adjust. So from the side, I'm going to bring my arms forward a bit and upward a bit. Now here, I'm pressing forward and outward. And I want to feel that, oh yes, those are my shoulder blades, they've moved. So there's this magic place where I'm engaging my arms. I'm putting effort there, but I'm not doing the kind of effort that locks down. I'm doing the effort that opens up. And that's something we have to find for ourselves internally as we work. But this effort is bringing an extension, not a constriction. And then coming lower. All right, coming lower. So when we move, we're a little softer with our effort. And here I'm gently pressing outward at my palms. And the upper back, I'm moving it upwards and I'm moving it backwards. I'm tucking my tailbone a little bit. And let's soften. We're going to bend the knees a little bit. And press down into the feet on that inner line, especially. So a little more weight around the base of the big toe, a feeling of the arch pressing downward. And then the tailbone still got that little tuck. Now I'm going to soften my arms. Bring them down. I'm just going to rotate them and let them hang here and just swing them back and forth. Okay, and then let's just come up here. So I got my hands making fists out in front of my chest, and they're just any kind of motion initially. So there's all these lovely back and forth motions, swirling around motions, rotating motions. Okay. And then use the fingers. So just get them to loosen up a little bit here. Now use the fingers like we're picking something up. And then I'm going to turn it up so the palm is up. I'm going to offer it out, spread the hand, bring the hand open back down, and then clasp with the fingers. So here, see how the wrist rotates, the elbow rotates. So this is kind of the primary movement of a lot of our forearm muscles. So here even, it's like I'm grabbing more, right? There's this swirling of the fingers. I grab more, I pluck up, I rotate, turn forward, and then spread out. This is a good way to look for too, little bits of numbness or twinging through here. And it can be very informative to us if we've got usually comes from things we do chronically. So here I'm just swirling. So if I worked chronically at the computer, I was helping someone last night, right? And they have the kind of computer work where they're extensively using the mouse. Right? It's not keyboard work, it's mainly mouse work. 10 hours a day. So they're losing feeling and control and thumb and finger. So these repetitive tasks, chefs have the same problem, right? You've got that one good knife hand and it's chopping, chopping, chopping. So all this chronic work. As the body adapts to the work, we often end up with the musculature developing and squeezing a nerve. So we do these repetitive simple motions that the hands and forearms, elbows are all designed to do. And if we find we've got little tweaks and nerve pains and tingles, that's a message to us that we need to look into our habitual pattern and see if we can soften it, loosen it. Okay. So if we were a computer user and we were getting that often right arm, right? We're usually right-handed, so it's usually the dominant arm. One of the hardest but best things to do is to make yourself use the mouse in the other hand. So anyway, heels are close, just a little distance between the heels, feet are turned outward. And then I'm gonna start with my hands at my hips. I'm gonna bend my right knee, really clearly, left leg stays straight, bend the right knee. As that right hip, it's moving backward a bit. Right hand's down just above the knee. When I breathe out, this hand's gonna run down the leg and I'm gonna look at it and take it down nice and low. We get this place, we have to make sure we're strong in the feet. And then for ourselves, we can gently explore how deeply that right knee can bend. There's a natural distance here, and we're just exploring that. So right hand is low, and then I'm gonna rotate my head and look at my left side, and then I'm gonna reach up my left arm, looking up toward the ceiling. So we can point the fingers at the ceiling, or if we're very careful, we can bend the wrist and carefully rotate the arm. You don't get much rotation, right? You just take a small rotation and immediately you can feel, because of the placement of the body, how the muscles are affected around the shoulder blade. Now, when we're ready to leave, just soften that left arm, point the fingers up, then put the left hand back on the hip, look down at the right hand, and inhaling, run the hand up the body. So we come back to neutral. We make sure the feet feel balanced and we have weight down in our feet. And then we bend the left knee. The hand's just above the knee initially. And if we like, we can just keep sliding down. We look at that lower hand. We fine tune the weight in the hips, the placement of that left knee. And then we look over to the right side, extend up the right arm. We can work with that arm rotation if we're very careful. And then to release that right arm, point the fingers up, bring the right hand on the hip, look down at the left hand, inhaling, run it up the leg. And then we're going to do the other side when we're ready. So first we had this moment in neutral, we're stable, and then we move. So we can just run the hand down. And when we're ready, looking to the side, reaching up in that left arm. Now there's a variation for us here. The left arm, rather than reaching it up, lower it down and reach that left hand over to the right side of the hip. So it goes across the back. And then so the backs of the fingers, they may be touching somewhere at the top of the right leg. And then we're going to leave so the left hand can just run over to the left side of the hip. And then we'll bring ourselves up. Again, we get up, we get stable. So that variation gives us a deeper twist through the core. So I'm just going to do the other side when we do it from the back. So if you weren't sure what I was doing, I'll show. So I'm now going to bend my left knee, take my left hand down, And then when I'm ready to, I'm going to take my right arm up. I can work with the arm up there, or I can take it down across the back. So when I'm ready to leave, the hand can just come onto the hip. We can bring ourselves up. So taking the hand onto the other side, the other hip, right, is preliminary to connecting the hands. So that's a tricky one because all of this area of the body, right, is deeply stretched and twisted. So it's one not to push and rush, but sometimes for some people, the flexibility is still there through that part of the body. So they can maybe find that connection. Okay, so we'll look at that again, but not today. We're going to go wide with our legs. We're going to keep the legs straight. We're going to work with an angle at the ankle that's comfortable for our hips and knees. And then we'll take both hands onto the right leg and just run the hands down the leg and let the head drop. The inhale, we'll bring both hands up. They'll cross over. We'll run down the other leg. And just setting our own gentle tempo. When we come up, we want to really feel the weight through the feet so that we come up with basically with grace, internal grace, well positioned. So we come up, the awareness is on the sensation of the foot. Okay, and then when we come up and we get into center, we're going to pause there. And then we get ourselves centered here. Today, we're just going to walk the hands down and we're going to pause with the hands just around the knee. And what I'm going to see if I can do is just basically feel my back flat. When we get here, we might want to adjust the legs a little bit and then pull the thigh muscles up to the hips to lift the kneecap. And then from here, we're going to take the hands and either touch the hands together behind the back or get them very close to each other. Sometimes we can just touch the fingertips together here. And sometimes the hands are apart. They're all good. It's what we can work with. So we get a sense of our back, not too low, but like we're a tabletop. The hands where they want to be. And I'm going to keep looking downward. I'm going to turn the shoulders and the ribs to the right. And then back to the center. I'm still looking down. They turn to the left. So we keep the spine pretty neutral by looking down, but the shoulders and the ribs go side to side. If this tires the arms, just take the hands apart and then the hands gently out to the side. Okay, and then we'll come back in the center and then take the hands back at the knees. And we're just going to lift ourselves up. Pull the feet in a little bit. Okay. So we're going to go down onto the mat and we'll see if we can just get a handful of squats. Always the important thing about this is the placement of the legs so the knee isn't compromised. We really don't mind that the muscles in the thighs and the hips, down in the calves, any of these muscles that they have to work is fine. But that we start to get strain in the knee, then we have to either just sit down or fine tune our distance. So once we feel like, okay, that's enough, then we just stay low if that's okay. If we do have a place, now, I mean, sincerely, we can keep going up and down. We can just sit down, right? This is a very useful position, but one we have to treat with a lot of respect. But if we can be here or close to here, try putting the hands down and tipping the weight forward. So I've lifted my heels. There's a lot of weight in my hands. And then you can see the knees, they're going to press against the sides of the arms and kind of fiddle around a little bit, get a good place. And internally, we can do a lot of very useful work here if we're able to be reasonably comfortable. I'm going to squeeze the knees onto the arms, and I'm going to lift the hips up a little bit. And then I'm going to bring the belly up into the low back. And you'll feel the inner thigh muscles potentially. So a nice, simple, static position, very strengthening for the hips. And then let's let the hips sink back down. When we're ready to leave, one hand goes back, the other hand goes back, and we're just going to sink weight back. See if we can get the hips down. Let's see if we can stretch the legs out. Get the legs a shake. I think what I'm going to do is change my camera so it's a bit easier to see me. So feet apart, and then just shaking the legs. I'm going to turn the minute out. There we go. And then it may be possible for you based on the surface you're on, but we'll just try this once or twice. If it's possible to just kind of swing the heels apart, legs are straight here, and then bend the knees, bring them in close, push them out. And then maybe one or two in the other direction. Okay, and then we'll end up with the legs long. Comfortable distance, it varies day to day. So what's a good one for today? Press out gently at the base of the big toe. Feel where the weight is in the hips. There's a little bit of a feeling of tucking the tailbone here. A feeling of length up the back body. So the thigh muscles have to work here. And at some point I need to breathe in. I'm just going to reach up. So any angle on the shoulders that's comfortable. I'm going to keep myself tall when I breathe out. I'm going to take the right hand, touch the fingertips behind me. Take the left hand, touch the fingertips in front of me. I'm going to stay tall. I'm just going to carefully look around to the right side. When I need to breathe in, I'll turn forward and I'm going to float the arms up into the air. And lift the shoulders off the ribs here on that inhale, and then to the other side. So the breath turns us forward, arms reach up, shoulders get off the ribs. And on the other, as we exhale back to the right, fingertips touch. Now, as we work this twist, give some attention to the weight through the sit bones in the hips. And we don't want to shift that weight or have it shift just the smallest natural amount. So I don't over twist if that means the weight shifts. Okay, we're on our last cycle. So once we've done a left side and we just naturally come back forward, once we're there, as we breathe out, we're going to reach outward. We're going to just touch anywhere on the legs. Once we touch on the legs, we can take our attention into the back body. There's a little tuck to the tailbone. We breathe into the low belly, and the low belly gently, like a hand, pushing the low back backwards. With the arms where they are, it's easy. The shoulder blades are probably already spread, but it's easy just to get a little more spread to the shoulder blades by activating at the elbows pushing outward a little bit, a little more bend, and then lift the back of the neck, go out through the crown of the head, and we're looking downward with the eyes. So what are we looking for internally here? See if you can place the spine so that you get a gentle, acceptable feeling of drawing in the back of the waist and the low back. So don't overdo this, but a gentle stretching. Not too much sensation. If the sensation becomes too strong, we have to soften out of that. Okay, now we're going to leave that. So then soften the arms and then just run up the legs. Take the hands behind. Take the weight back. Bring the knees in. And just send the knees one side, then the other side. Okay, knees go to the right side. We're going to twist again. To get the knees down, my left hip, I'm going to lift it up. So I now really sit up. My left hip is clearly off the ground. It's turning a bit to the right. I'm going to put a hand on it. And with that hand, I'll just turn it a little more. And I'm going to look around over my right shoulder. And then when I'm ready for an inhale, I'm going to turn forward. So once I've started to turn my chest forward, I can release my left hand, give it some weight. Knees are going to come up. They're going to head to the other side. And now this right hip, it really wants to come up. It wants to turn. And I follow through by looking round over that shoulder. And then the inhale turns me forward. And I'm going to stay forward. So I get forward, stretch out the legs. And I'm going to bend my right knee. I'm just going to bring it in front of my body. There's my right hand. It's on the ground. I'm going to get a bit of support from my right hand. I'm going to lean over to the right. And then there's that left. It was the straight leg. I'm going to bend the knee. And the foot kind of just scrapes in. But then I'm going to see if I can lift the foot out. And then it gets to swing one side, then the other. And then as it swings over toward the right, keep going, keep going, keep going. Bend the knee, put the foot down. So I'm just going to adjust so I'm head on here. So I swung it from the left to the right. So where is it? Here's my left foot. It's flat, the left knee. Left hip is clearly off the ground. And then I'm just going to put the hand onto the knee for a moment. Now see what's going on with the right side. There's some weight on that right hand, but start to lessen it by lifting in the right armpit. And then tuck the tailbone a little bit. But now the left knee presses outward, comes backward. As it presses outward, you can feel the whole hip structure moves, and you can see the chest, the upper body moves. So we're going to lift up through the upper body. We're going to move our neck back and up, the head back and up. And then when you press the knee forward, just pause with the knee pressed forward. So take this left hand off the left leg. It's the left foot pressing down into the left foot. Okay, lifting in the right armpit. Let's make this complete. Here's the right arm. It goes out there. So I'm going to bend the wrist, point the fingertips down, push out at the shoulder. So press out through the hand. So again, it's this magic place where I'm putting enough exertion to energize, to stretch carefully, but not so much exertion that it clamps down inside the body. And then check in with the tailbone, a little tuck. The knee presses forward. That's that left knee. Check in with that right armpit, lifting up in the right armpit. So lots of hidden work in this position. It's a deep stretch down into the core. And then we're going to get out of here by softening the arm, softening the body. And we're going to undo that leg. So let the weight now come into the left hip. I'm going to take both hands back, put some weight on the hands, and I can easily undo the right leg. And they just get to go easy back and forth a bit. Stretch them both out. Let's give them a gentle shaking. And then we're going to change sides. So let's just bring the left foot in first. Now, this is hard work on the joints, unfortunately. So do be prepared to pad for the knees, right? Keep them comfortable. Left knee, left hands touching the ground, weight going over to the left side. So I'm going to prepare this right knee. I'm just going to bend it in, stretch it out. I'm going to see if I can bend it in and lift it off the ground and swing it back and forth. You know, you can lean over here. Right? You can put a hand behind. But one of those times I'm going to take it across and land it on the outside of that knee. So right leg, right hand. Left hand's on the ground. Okay. So this right knee moves forward and back. And I want to feel that internally. Knee presses forward, the hip is brought forward. So when you go back, just pause for a moment, tuck the tailbone. It's a small move. It's an image of tucking the tailbone. And then bring the knee forward with the tailbone a little tucked. And then just hold there and lift up the spine, lift up in that left armpit. Move the neck back, the back of the head up. You know, when we lift up in the armpit, we kind of start to take the weights of the whole shoulder structure off of the ribs. And we want to get the weight of the shoulders off the ribs in general, so the ribs breathe better. Okay, so right knee push outward, press on the foot, right arm outward, bend at the wrist, push in the palm, pressing out. And then we go back inside and find the tailbone, the back of the waist, up the spine, the neck, the back of the head. And then refine the eyes by looking downward without dropping the head. So engagement and energy without constriction. Okay, let's soften. So release the arm, release the neck, put the hand back at the knee. Take the knee to the foot to the other side of the knee. I'm going to sink the weight back, weights on my hands, and do the legs. Take them out, just gently shake them. So we can shake them up and down a little bit, turn them in and out a little bit. Okay, and then just coming, simple place here. So legs out forward. I'm just going to reach down. I'm going to get an easy grip. So there's a number of postures here. But let's for a moment do one where we look at rounding the back over. So we'll look for the same themes. There's some energy in the legs where the thighs are drawing into the hips. And then do something a little different with the feet. Imagine turning the soles of the feet towards each other. So base of the big toes, they pull inward towards the trunk. Outside edges of the feet, they push forward. So there's a real energetic feeling of you could turn the ball of the foot towards each other. And then take that energy up the legs, draw the thighs into the hips. So we're holding on anywhere that's an easy grip for us. But what we can add with the arms is bending the elbows a bit, pressing the elbows towards the feet a little bit. And feel how the shoulder blades come apart. And then we're going to round the spine up into that space. And then move the back of the waist back a little bit. And press the knees downward. So we're trying to let the spine get stretched here. So we have to let the spine relax and not use the muscles of the spine. The legs and the arms, the belly, they get to do the heavy work. Really keep the thighs active. Okay, so let's soften the arms. So let the arms relax, maybe just rest the hands beside the legs, and just see if you can make the legs strong enough and the belly strong enough that you can hold a version of this position with the low back still relaxed. And then when you're ready to come out, just lift up, walk the hands up beside the legs, walk the hands up so they get some of the weight and we don't throw the effort back on the low back. Okay, we're going to come onto our back. So just coming down with knees bent, and we'll start with the feet flat on the mat. So when the feet are flat, work with the distance of the feet from the hips so you can find a place where you can let the back of the waist, the top of the hips, sink downward. So if the feet are in really close, see what that feels like. And then take the feet further away and see what happens. And as you just relax here, work with where the feet make most sense for the hips and the low back and the belly being soft. And let the breath fill the belly. Okay, and then let's release the arms from where they are, take them vertical, point the fingertips up at the ceiling, and just reach for the ceiling so the shoulders lift up. You can feel again the shoulder blades separating. And then bend the wrists, rotate the arms. Now the fingers are pointing down toward the feet, and the thumbs are out sideways. And then again, lifting the arms, lifting the shoulders. Now the arms don't have to be straight up from the shoulders. Some days we'd like to have the arms just a little wider apart. Look for that place where we can lift and we don't feel strained. Now, as you lift with the arms, when you're exhaling, let the sternum, the breastbone, just sink downwards as you breathe out. And let it stay down when you breathe in. And just one or two more breaths here. Now, as you're breathing, feel the back body. So on that inhale, the back of the ribs, that area sinks into the ground. And below the ribs, allow that area to sink into the ground. And when you do exhale, keep that sinking down going, but on the exhale, let the back of the head sink toward the mat. Okay, and then on the exhale, as it's well underway, soften the arms, grab the knees, draw the knees inward into the ribs. So hands are on the knees. We just gently hug them close. Okay, we're going to hold the knees close and then just have the hands on top of the knees, because from here, we're just going to roll over onto our right side. Once we get to the right side, lower the knees a little bit. They were right up near the ribs, and take them down a little bit so that they're kind of out from the hips. So on the right side, put the right hand up on the top thigh somewhere above the knee, and then let the ribs, sorry, not the ribs, the shoulder blades, let the shoulder blades drop down toward the mat. See if you can keep the hip one above the other. You start to drop the shoulder blades down, drop the upper back toward the mat. The top hip wants to go back as well. So see if you can work with the hips one above the other. And then the feet are pretty close to the hips. Now, once you're comfortable enough to keep going, take the left arm vertical, reach for the ceiling. So there's that shoulder blade moving. And then I'm going to bend my wrist. I'm going to turn my arm. So thumb is outward, press up lightly. And then lower the arm down near the ear, just out from the ear, just off from the ground. You can feel a real stretch in the armpit. Keep that gentle as you push out through the hand. And then soft in the armpit. There's some work there, but don't focus there. Focus on letting the left shoulder blade melt downward toward the ground, and let that left arm open outward, slowly outward away from the head as you melt the shoulder blade down. Find a comfortable position to pause in, where the arm is kind of halfway or less toward the shoulder height. You get to gently press outward through the palm, and see if you can let that left shoulder blade start to just melt. So when we do the effort through this arm, we're constantly adjusting the placement of the effort so that the goal of melting down can occur. And then when you're ready to leave, kind of go soft in the arm, but bring it up vertical. And then just bring the hand back down onto that top hip. Let the arm rest. And turn the head so the gaze goes off to the right side again. And then just bring the weight back onto the back, the knees up, and adjust the placement of the hips so the hips and back are even on the mat. And just pause there for a moment and just feel the difference in the sides of the body before we go to the next side. Okay, now when we're ready to move, we're going to do it the same way. We breathe out, we're going to pull the knees into the chest, and the hands are around the knees. And just get a breath or two where you hug the legs in. Now we're going to drop over onto the left side. So let's put the hands on top of the knees. Take ourselves all the way over on the left. And then lower the knees a bit so they're in line with the hips rather than toward the ribs. And just make sure we've got the ribs or the knees stacked one on top of the other and the hips stacked one on top of the other. Bottom hand is the left hand. It grabs somewhere on the top thigh. And we let the shoulders rest down toward the ground. As we drop the upper back toward the mat, I want to keep the top hip stacked above the bottom hip. Now, once we feel ready, that right arm, it just points straight up at the ceiling. Initially, fingers pointing up, reach up. You can feel the arm move, the shoulder move. So bend the wrist, rotate the arm. Now the thumb points away off to the side, the fingers down toward the feet, and we press upward again. And then lower the arm down close to the ear, close to the ground, but off of the ground. Gently press outward. Let the armpit open here. And then go inside and let the shoulder blade start to melt down. And as you let it melt down, let the arm slowly open wider. And just melting the shoulder blade down, finding a comfortable angle for the arm where it can press out. You can soften within the shoulder blade, sinking toward the mat. And then the final refinement, lengthening the neck, lengthening the back of the head, and letting the gaze go toward the cheeks. Okay, so we're going to release, so that right arm, soften it a bit, take it up vertical, and take it on to the top side, hands near the hip, and turn the head, look to the left again, and then roll onto the back body, place the feet, level out the back. Just take a moment here, letting the back release, letting the weight of the hips sink in the ground. And then grab the knees, draw the knees in toward the chest. So separate the legs this time. And the hands are taking the weight of the legs, and we position the legs so the back of the waist sinks down. And then keep the legs basically where they are, but open up the knees so the feet point toward the ceiling. Walk the hands up the legs, grab as high up as you comfortably can hold. So if the hands get the feet, have the, wherever you grab, see if you can have the arms on the insides of the legs. All we're doing here is letting the weights of the arms draw on the legs. Take the breath into the belly. And then let's change this position. Stretch up the legs, slide the hands down, and just for ourselves, find somewhere to hold on the legs where we can push up through the feet. And with the hands holding the legs, helping hold the legs, it's not quite so much load. Now, this is much easier if you've got a bolster you can have under the hips that isn't too high. If we can just elevate the hips a bit, that can be more comfortable. So a folded blanket is also a good choice. When we're ready to work from here, both hands hold onto the left leg, and the inhale lowers the right leg. And take it down and let the heel just touch on the mat, then push out through the heel. And on the exhale, bring the right leg up, and then take both hands to the right. And a fresh inhale to lower the left. Heel touches and we push out. And then we're going to bring up the left again. We'll do this once more for each side. So inhale lowers a leg. Exhale raises a leg. And then whenever we get a left one, that's our last one. After that left one, when both legs are back up, we simply bend the knees. Hands are still on the knees. And with the hands, open the knees wide, let the feet drop back to the mat. And then we're going to gently extend the legs.